The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
Song for LA. Straight up. Just go out to LA. The new anthem. California Love Part 2. One to live and die in LA. West side, west side, west side. To live and die in LA, where everybody try to fatten their pocket. So many hustle for the cash, so it's hard to knock it. Everybody got their own thing.
Well, hello. God bless you, community family, and welcome to Gang Talk. As you see tonight, it's just me. And if you've been watching, you know this is Sister Heron. And I've been doing this radio since 2009 and moved to podcast by a blessing, actually, because the network, our local station, radio station, KTYM, was sold. So we didn't pick that precious community location up and we lost it. So it put us in a bind, and God opened the door for us to come and join you at Morris Media. So we've been here since 2016 until I actually thought 2018 I could retire. And I say that in all sincerity because we were doing so well. We were doing so much better then. And I actually came back in an urgency. Well, we came back last year when our precious Vicki Lindsay from Project Cry No More passed away and left us all heartbroken and surprised because not enough of us knew that she was not only ill, but that she was that ill. So we came in and did a series of shows on her behalf because Vicki Lindsay was a glue that held us all together. And she spoke for families and victims of violent crime, and she was a resource. And as I said, and will say again, she was a glue that helped a lot of us stay in this work. And absolute pioneer, dedicated. We adored Vicki, even though she was tough, because this is a hard arena, a lot of cruelty in it, a lot of pain, a lot of sorrow. And Vicki helped us migrate through that to be effective, not just to wallow in the hurt and anger, but to be effective about it. So I like to call her the glue that held us together. See, because and I'm going to just tell you, yeah, I'm here by myself tonight, but it's not because I didn't ask someone to join us. The problem is 2020 is a year that was very costly on a lot of different levels, and people seem to be coming out the woodworks now, and folks that I used to rely on have now become important, and they're busy over here doing this, over here doing this, over here and over here and over here. And the sad truth is we don't have enough to cover all those places some of those individuals are being called to service. So that's why I have no one in the studio tonight. And of course, that's always disappointing because we have never wanted anybody to think that this was just us. Never been here by myself. I've always been in the group and proud of that. Proud of that. There are no I's in our team. No I's. We don't respect the I's in the team. We like team. So I've been a proud member of both Southern California Ceasefire Committee, Vicki's beloved Project Cry No More, and Watts Gang Task Force. And we support those agencies because those are communities and neighbors and community groups that are coming together to try to resolve our conflict. So I actually came back last month in February because in January, by the middle of January, no later than the end of January, we had over 180 shootings in the South Bureau community, 180 shootings. And that figure does not include how many were casualties. I want to just stop for a minute. We had over 180 shootings, but it does not include how many were casualties. So that was the alarm, plus the fact that a lot of the casualties were in the 17-year-old range. Okay? And when I started, young people were telling me, well, you know, sister, yeah, I hear everything you're saying, but I don't think I'm going to see my 25th birthday. And the sad truth is a lot of them didn't. When I started, they didn't see their 25th birthday. And so to see that now we have regressed to where our 17-year-olds are leaving us, I don't know what kind of alarm we need to wake us up and say, oh, we got to do something. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here tonight. And I actually had tried to get respected spiritual people, 2 men, both of them respected spiritually, because I was pretty hard on our churches in the last show and stating very clearly that they had shunned our work. And I'm sure I upset some sanctuaries, and I apologize, but on this level, if we don't know you, how can you exist? How can you exist? We're down here doing the hardest work we possibly could in our neighborhood, and that's to save the lives of our own children, to save their futures, to show them something different, and to see the alarming absence of our shepherds and our faith leaders, you know, is very confusing. Very confusing for me, because as a believer, I believe that prayer changes things, as I've asked before. If we all prayed in unison, if we all prayed in agreement, that I believe that we could change this. I really believe that we could change this. We have to change this, because it's a spiritual warfare against our people. It's a spiritual warfare. There's an absence of God in the shooter. He may not know God. He may not believe God. He sure doesn't believe in God, or he wouldn't pull that trigger. So these are the things that we are here to talk about. I had prayed that it would be a spiritual-led evening tonight, but my people have prior engagements over here, another one over here, and so we weren't able to accomplish that. So tonight is just me. So I see the call-in numbers up on the screen, as we promised in our post that we would accept call-ins tonight. And I had 2 people right away ask me, well, what are you going to talk about? And I asked them, what would they like to talk about? So any one of those that asked me that question is free to call in now, and we can discuss anything that they want to discuss, or anyone else that has something they want to include in this critical topic. Feel free to call that phone number right now. See, because the one thing I learned from 2009 to 2021, God's given me the conversation about this. He's given me the ability to talk to you in honesty about this. And so it's, as I said, when the police were here, this is ours to fix. It's not their job. So anybody, whether you don't agree with us, where you think there's some magic solution over here, call us and tell us what that is. Call us and tell us what you think that is. See, because I see a lot of despair. I not only see a lot of despair, I see a lot of sorrow. I see a lot of our community hurt and hurting. Okay? And it's because of this ugly cloud that came over, swept over our neighborhoods, took our hearts, killed our families, killed our children, killed our energy. And I see the fallout from that in those that I see walking around my community every day with the hopelessness in them. And to have a cousin contact me yesterday looking for a relative of hers that has become homeless, it just tells me that this is so much greater. This is such a great devastation to us, and we just don't seem to be focused enough in trying to find solutions. So I know that there was, I don't want to call it a podcast, but there was a Zoom conference tonight about justice and that kind of thing. And, I agree with justice, but what difference does it make if we get justice on one place and don't get justice for the ones that kill our children? And I'm not talking about the police when I say that. I'm talking about a little monster that we let continue to wreak his havoc. So the good news I wanted to share with you was that I came back because of the crazy numbers of shootings that happened just at the first of the year. We're not even 60 days in it, and we've already had that horrific number of shootings that could have been casualties. And as I said again, it doesn't include the number of casualties. So when you think about that, that was at least 240 incidences. I'm put it that way. 240 incidences. All right. And I don't know how much our community can handle. I don't know that we have another 240 kids that we can afford to bury. I just don't know that we have enough love to say, oh, it's okay. 240 shot, oh, no big deal. Wasn't my kid. Didn't touch me. See, and the sad news for me, I met families like that. They've told me, oh, sister, I hear everything you're saying, but you know what? It's not in my neighborhood. It's not on my block. My kids are good kids. And I'm going to tell you quite honestly, I've been doing this since 1988. And I've only met two mothers in all those years, two mothers that admitted that their children had killed somebody. Only two. And both of those women of courage turned in their own children. Let me say that one more time. These two mothers that let me know, my son took a life. It's like, oh my God. And then mother come back at me and say, yeah, and I'm the one that turned him in. And it's like, what made you? How did you? How were you able? She said, because I have other children. I have another son. And I don't want him to follow in those footsteps. See, so the worst thing that we get in this arena is just blanket parent blame. Everybody wants to blame the parents. If we raise better kids. And I'm going to say it quite candidly to you. The mothers that I have cried with over their dead children have been good mothers. They've been good mothers, trying the best to raise their kids the best way they could. Okay, and the streets just decided, well, we got something else in mind for your children. And that's what started this war. Took our kids out of the homes that we were struggling trying to keep. Single mothers doing the best they could. And the streets stole their children. And we got people that actually blame those mothers like, well, why didn't you raise him better? They're like, you know what? When you're a single mother and your 17-year-old comes and tells you as his mother what he's gonna do, and you tell him, no, baby, don't do that, stay here with me. And he tells her, no, I'm gonna roll with my homies. And she tells him, no, you can't go. And he turns around and tells her, well, you can't stop me. The reason I'm telling you this story, for two reasons. We overlook the peer pressure that's involved in this, because we don't want to blame the kids that they're making these decisions. We don't want to blame them. They're good kids. They wouldn't hurt nobody. They wouldn't. Oh, come on now. Because I'm telling you, that single mother is trapped between the streets and her child. And this is where I've asked the men, where's the mentorship for that mother? And Ceasefire, in the early days, we opened our doors to her. You having trouble with your baby? Bring him on in here, and the men will counsel him, and the women will support you. And that's the kind of service we gave to our community. That was our give back. Bring your troubled child to us. Bring him to us. Let us talk to him. And the problem is, yeah, we talked to him, but then he went back to his peer group. Let me say that one more time. He went back to his peer group, and he let his peer group convince him that he didn't have to listen to us. He didn't have to listen to us. You know, and we've done everything with some of these kids to try to get them jobs and get them a trade. And I've had guests that come in here and talk to me about that workforce that they could get them into. And this man's frustration was, I got one of his attention, but he was sitting with 5 of his friends. He was interested in what I had to offer until his 5 friends called him a punk. Man, what you think you gonna do? Where you think you gonna go? You see, that kind of discouraging talk, you know, that comes from kids that don't have anything, any idea where they're going. And sadly for me, some of them have only been planning their own funerals. You're 15 years old, and all you thinking about what colors you want the flowers to be and what you want your casket to look like, and you're 15 years old. See, and how can I, as a grandmother, convince that 15-year-old there's more to life that he hadn't even gotten to? He hadn't even gotten there yet, and he's already in that casket. And I went to see that baby. I sure did. I was stunned when I heard the stories about him. He was in love with the lifestyle. He couldn't wait to be a gangbanger. He carried a gun. He liked his colors. He liked his crew. And here he is in a casket at 15 years old, having already told his friends what colors he wants, what flowers he wants, how he wants to be dressed. And I'm looking at my community through these cameras and asking you very simply, how did our kids get so disillusioned? Where did we lose them? Can we get them back? You know, I see this generation working so hard to try to do something else. And as happy and as excited as I am about there were 180 shootings in a month and a half. In my community, in the South Bureau Division. And you heard the police chief of South Bureau and her commanding officer sit here and tell you that, February 18th. As I told them very candidly, it's not their job to fix us. It's not their job, it's ours. It's ours. See, so, you know, people that want to challenge me or tell me I don't know enough, call me up. Call me up. You see that phone number? Call me up. Tell me what I have wrong. Tell me what I'm missing. Tell me what I don't understand, because, you know, after 30 years, I've seen too much. I've seen too much. I've buried too many children. I've cried with so many mothers, thousands of them. Look, in 30 years, come on. Let's be real about this. And that's what Gang Talk has always been. We've been real about this. Some people don't appreciate it. Some people don't respect it. Some people call us foolish and wasting our time. And I just take all that stuff and ask God, are we wasting our time, Lord? Are we being foolish? God, I need you to tell me because I'm following your lead. I'm following your instructions. I'm praying faithfully. I've committed to this. You know, so here I am again tonight because we had hoped to have a spiritual hour with you, a spiritual hour. So those are the guests that I asked to come. And it's only because I'm familiar with these two individuals on this level. I didn't ask somebody from some sanctuary. No, oh no, no. This has to be people that are down on this level, not looking at us from up here, looking down on us. No, they got to be down here so we can look up at those that are not paying attention to us. Okay? So I've talked for about 30 minutes already. You know, God say, use the words, use the words. It's like, I give you the words. You can talk about this. After 30 years, I think I got a whole lot to say. And the problem is, I think people are just tired of hearing me. Okay, so when I have gone out on some occasions, my God, and oh my God, it's been too many. It's just been too many. And when people look at me and say, well, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? And I've had to look back at them, tell them, you know, I don't know. What am I doing here? What am I doing here? I'm here because somebody's child was murdered. And I don't want to be confused about that. And I don't want anybody getting me confused about that. If you see me out here, it's because something's wrong. It's because something's wrong. And I keep looking for you to just say, hey, look, we believe in what you're trying to do. We support what you're trying to do. We appreciate that somebody's trying to do something. Just little kind words like that. We appreciate that somebody's trying to do something. You know, because I think half of you, if you're even listening, I don't think you believe in us. I really don't. I see people doing stuff over here and stuff over here, but I'm looking for the infusion in here, right here, in this subject. Where's the infusion in this? And don't tell me the police. Stop telling me, well, the police should arrest the shooter. Well, how's he going to arrest the shooter if you won't tell him who the shooter is? You know, and those of you that know, back in the days, the police used to let the street solve that. They weren't going out looking for shooters. No. See, because by the time they get a name, that person's probably already been killed himself. As we talked about that, you pull that trigger on yourself. You pull that trigger on yourself at the same time. And folks that don't believe me, let me tell you, that's why LAPD wasn't arresting murderers about 10 years ago, because the street was taking care of that business. And families used to complain, why aren't you catching the killer of my kid? Why is my baby not getting justice? Well, that's because your child's murderer is probably already dead. Already dead. That's how bad it was. That's how bad it was, family. That's how bad it was. The police wasn't even going looking because the street was going to take care of that business for you. And you still don't know who killed your baby, because your baby's murder is already dead. See, so how does that help that family heal? So that's why this conversation is important. If we don't face this, it's never going to be fixed. And as we look all around at everybody else's business, oh my God, we on Kurt Franklin's trail right now because he cursed out his grown son. Uh, and I applaud Kurt. I'm sorry if you don't agree with me. I don't care he dropped the F-bomb on that 33-year-old ungrateful child. He ain't a child no more. He's a grown man. And the fact is, you had a father like Kurt Franklin that raised you. Sounds to me like you had more privilege than lack. Okay. And it sounds like there's a little son ingratitude, especially when you out your father on social media for cursing you out. Really. I don't want anybody to think I didn't fight with my kids, because I did. Puberty's a dog. Puberty for a parent. Ugh. That's the hardest thing I've ever had to do, was getting my kids through that phase. Oh my God. And were there fights and disagreements and why don't you mind your own business kind of talk? And, tell my kids, well, your business is my business. You live in this house, we feed you, we clothe you. What part of your life isn't my business? See, so we had those kind of conversations with our kids too. We did. Never had to drop the F-bomb, but certainly came close. Certainly came close. And I didn't hear what Kurt said to his son, but I got the gist of it, because I'm a parent too. And kids, raising kids in 20 in this time. I'm glad my kids aren't kids anymore. I'm happy they're adults, because I don't think I could afford to have a kid in 2020. Not with the price of things and toys and technology and stuff. I couldn't afford them. So I kind of feel a little empathy for my kids that are parents, because I know the economic change that's happened for them. When we were coming up, we got our record player with green stamps. I know some of you don't even know what a record player is. But we didn't have no stereo store to go and get get that hookup. We got a dang record player with an arm. And as young girls, me and my sister was really excited to have that. But green stamps paid for that, not my mom and dad. No, they didn't buy us stuff like that back then. They couldn't afford that kind of stuff. See, so I'm rambling on a little bit about the struggles of being a parent in the 20s, but it's still a job. It's still a job, and somebody has to do it. And if you're going to have kids, I don't mean these kids, if you're going to have children, you have to accept the good and the bad and do the best you can. And I believe the majority of the mothers I'm talking about that have buried their children have done the best they could. And the streets took their babies anyway. You see, so for me, it's not okay just to blame parents. I want you all to cut that out. Stop narrowing your focus. Stop putting the blame on them, because I don't know one mother, not one, that put that gun in her son's hand and said, baby, go put in that work. Mothers don't do that. So when people come at me about the parents, I get my back all up. It's like, who are you talking about? These ladies that struggle to do everything they have to do to take care of kids now. And then you want to blame them because the child gets 15 and decides, oh, my friend's opinions mean more to me than yours. My own children treated me that way. They got 14 and 15, and all of a sudden, I was interfering with their business. It's like, what? Wait a minute. When did you get grown? And so these are the common things that puberty pushes against us. And we're not looking at it that way. Because I don't want to out my own kids, but a devastating murder happened at a very young age that caught one of my children up in the violence that personally hurt them. And they dressed up. They put on the uniform of our neighborhood, the colors of our neighborhood, head to toe. head to toe, and going to school in their enemy's territory. And as I told them, you present yourself as a walking target when you leave this house. You think they didn't fight with me about that? It's like you could get killed and I could get a call from the police or the coroner because I'm getting calls, robocalls from the school telling me you didn't show up for homeroom. Your child didn't show up for homeroom today. See, and what parent isn't afraid of that phone call from the school? In those days, we were all afraid of those phone calls. We were all afraid of those phone calls. And when I asked them about that, well, how'd you miss homeroom? Well, they were hanging out with their friend. It's like, you were hanging out with your friend. It was more important for you to hang out with your friend than to get to homeroom and be counted. So I get the scary phone call that tells me, oh, you didn't make it to school. It's like, oh my God. So those were the years of being a parent that brought me here, because I saw this in my own kids, how easily they could be caught up. Okay, how easily they could be caught up. And that child, bless their hearts, buried so many of their friends in those 6 years between junior high school and high school. I thought they were going to lose their mind. The horror of it. And, that's why in 2018, 19, when the homicides were going down, I was beginning to feel like we were starting to accomplish something, that we were actually making a difference, and I still believe that. But 2020 took all of that work away because everybody was in quarantine, and as the police chief said, they weren't able to respond to these locations. They weren't able to get to the hospital to meet with the family and, help the counseling and this kind of thing. And so obviously their absence last year had an impact at the beginning of this year. And I'm going to, how much time? Okay, because I've talked for almost 45 minutes. Good Lord, okay? But, one thing, we've asked to defund the police, and there are two things going on right now. What are they going to do with that defunded money? The police chief told you on the 18th they're trying to use some of that money to fix the street. And what do I get from my neighborhood? Nothing. Crickets. Even crickets making more noise than we are. And the city has a general street maintenance agency. They already have a budget to fix our streets. And now you mean to tell me that if we're going to defund the police, we're going to take that money from the law enforcement and use it to fix the streets when the city already has a budget for that? And we're down here needing funding for intervention. We need support for these intervention soldiers to go out and make the calls and work the streets and work the communities and talk these things down. See, because what I want to tell you, as effective as they are, last weekend there were 0 shootings. Zero shootings last weekend. Not this past weekend, the weekend before last. And I was coming to tell you that until last weekend. Something happened last weekend, we had a fatality. But to go from 180 shootings down to 0, I thought that was substantial. Now, my disappointment is all those people that hit me up at Facebook that challenged me and stuff. How come you all ain't on the phone? You said you had something you wanted to say. Now's your chance to say it. So don't come hit me up at Facebook talking about what you did and what I didn't. I don't want to hear none of that. When here is your chance to be heard. And I think that's the way I put the post out. It's time for us to hear from you. And the guest that I had invited tonight, that was called over here, just being pulled in all different directions because there's only one of him. You know, people said they had something they wanted to say. I don't want anybody to think I missed the challenges because y'all have a way of sticking me. It draws blood. So here's my challenge to you. Call that number because we're running out of time. And I've talked for 45 minutes almost. Actually 40 because we started late. I was waiting for my guest that wasn't able to get here. So what's the other thing I wanted to be sure? The other issue, since I was here the last time, I've had grief-struck mothers screaming at me, calling me, screaming at me about this new district attorney and these early releases. And I've never had a problem with the early release program until it comes to murderers. They're the only ones I draw the line. See, and as people talk about forgiveness, and I have forgiveness, but when you take a life, God has to forgive you. God's the one that has to forgive that. And to hear grandparents crying over their grandchild and saying, oh, it must have been God's will. It was God's will. And we give the devil a pass. We blame God, but we give the devil a pass. See, and I'm trying to get you to understand, the devil's been making punks out of us. For the last 30 years, he's been partying off the blood of our children. And what have we done? Oh, well, that's over there. Okay, party on. As long as you don't bring that party on my block, it's okay. And then we get that mother, well, my child was riding with his friends. He's the one that got killed. He's the one that got killed. And my baby was innocent. He wasn't no gangbanger. He was just riding around with his friends. See, and we don't see that maybe the friends he was hanging with are the reason he was killed. We don't see it that way. We haven't thought to protect our children like that. We haven't thought to protect their friends like that. I've been there so long that I had a filter on our front door. You come and knock on the door to see our kids, I got to know who you are. I got to know who your parents are. I got to know where you live. Because if you take my child off and they don't get back, I want to know who they left with. Those are the kind of questions we were forced to ask. We were forced to ask because, as I said, one of our children picked up the colors and wore them to school every day, presenting themselves as a walking target to anybody looking to shoot that color. And that was the hardest thing to get them to understand because they fought me about that. They say, oh, Mom, you don't understand. And I had to say, yeah, you're right. I don't understand. I really don't. But what I do understand, I don't want you to die in the street like this. I don't want you to die in the street because of this. Can't you put on another color? No, I can't. No, I can't. What do you mean you can't? I'm not wearing that. I think that's the hardest time for any parent when your kid thinks they're grown enough to tell you as their caregiver and the responsible party for them when they tell you what they're not going to do. Okay, see, where do we go from there? See, and at that time, that child respected their peers' opinion more than they did mine and their dad's. They respected their friends' opinion more than they did mine. And so we had years, as I said, the next 6 years, they buried a lot of their friends and classmates. And it was such a trauma. I just thought it would just destroy their mind. I thought it would just destroy their mind because every time I turned around, one of their friends was being murdered, and they were coming home with that anger and that grief. The grief, it was so unfair. You're not even an adult yet. You haven't even really gotten out of your childhood, and you're grieving every time I turn around. Every time I turn around. So, do we actually look at our kids and ask them, have any of your classmates been harmed? Has anybody tried to woo you into this? What are you thinking about? And so, these are the things that I had to do. My husband and I had to do to raise our kids, and we're in 2021 now. But I started in 1988. I started in 1988, and I never had any idea that 30-something years later, I'd still be talking to you about this. I'd still be sitting here talking to you about this. And what a blessing it was for God to lead me to the radio station in the first place, because I argued with God. It's like, Lord, I don't know nothing about radio. I hear you. Go over there and tell me. I was like, Lord, I can't do that. I don't know nothing about radio. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know what I'm going to do. And the Holy Spirit said, just get up and get there. And the rest is history. I got up and I got there. And we've been broadcasting on Thursday at 6 o'clock since 2009. Now we're over here podcasting in the heart of our beloved Crenshaw corridor since 2016. You see, so I know that the work that my associates have put out in the street, out in the gutter, mothers that have come in and say, hey, we got to get a handle on this. I know these people have made a difference. I know they made a difference. While you've been safe in your home not thinking about it, these folks have been out here in the gutters, in the alleys, in the streets, talking to our kids, trying to get them to think a different way. We have ex-offenders that have got back in their right mind, like one of my favorite young men said, likes to admit, well, sister, I was tricked. Okay, that's a small word for a big dynamic, but that was the way he saw it. He got tricked away from the life that he had intended for himself into a life that was intended to take him out, And so to hear him recovered from all that madness, now actually building a sustainable future that's going to make his own children proud of him. His own children. It's not only going to take care of him, but he's setting up a look for the kids around him too, including his own. He wants them to see that a black man can do more than just die in the gutter. How about that? Can we do something more than just let our kids die in our streets? Can we do something more, family? Are we going to do something more? I know I'm not talking to myself. I know I'm not. It's just amazing that when I say these things, what do I get back? Silence. Silence. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. It's frustrating for the men that put themselves out there. It's frustrating for the heartbroken mothers that have buried their children, the heartbroken fathers that have done the same, the heartbroken sisters. There's a lot of heartbreak. We have a lot of heartbreak, and the two issues that we really need to think about is the district attorney early releasing murderers. I mean, if you're a car thief, early release, I don't be mad at you. If you were incarcerated for selling weed before it became legal, I'm not mad at you. Let them. They should early release you, and they should expunge your weed record too. Okay, because you made a nickel, went to jail for a dime, and now the other side of the city's making millions, and you ain't got a leg or foot in that door. You served the time, you didn't really make any money, and now that whole thing has blown up to where they're making millions, and we're still standing on the corner looking broke. We're still standing on the corner looking broke. So that's one of those disparities that I find very troublesome, because we got the convictions, but we can't get the business. And I can't make that reconcile. See, we served the time in prison for it, but now we can't make the money. See, so it's a double standard in California here that we need to address as well. But my thing is murder. You want to sell weed, that's on you. I'm not pushing that. I'm just making a point. We served all the time in prison, but these people are now making all the money and we can't get a dime of it. So we've got issues. What are we going to do with the defunded funds? Are we going to let them fix the streets with that? Did George Floyd die so LA could use that police money and fix our streets? Really? Come on, family. You got to tell us what we want here. Your silence is not helping us. When you go after the justice system, then say, oh, I shook my fist and I'm going home and watch TV. What did we gain? What did we gain? And we're sitting here looking at, we didn't like Jackie Lacey. Oh my God, we didn't like Jackie Lacey. But now we got this guy and he's going to let juvenile killers back out in your community. And that's my big concern. I'm not concerned about a car thief. I'm not concerned about that. I'm only concerned about people that kill. And I haven't found that early release for them. I don't know how that works, but I know a mother that's being affected by it right now, and to have her screaming at me about this, it's insane. It's insane. I don't have the right words to tell her. See, because this is just one mouth. And this one mouth ain't been able to do all or nothing except come and sit and talk to you for an hour, trying to get you to see that we have work to do. We have work to do, and you all just don't care. You either don't care, you don't believe me, you don't think it's possible, I'm not sure, but you're just not here. That's my concern. You're just not here. I have a call. Bless your heart. See, Poet has told me we got a caller. We're almost off the air, so caller, I'm glad you called before we're gone. Can you hear me? Hello, caller. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
Well, sitting here looking for somebody to tell me.
Well, I'm here to tell you you're doing excellent. You're doing excellent.
Oh, bless your heart for that. I mean, you know, we're all in this together. We are all in this together. And it's about us as a people.
It is.
And yeah.
So I wanted to ask you a question and also make a comment. So
Sure.
I'll make my comment to set the context for my question.
Go ahead.
So I'm in that era. I graduated high school in '88. So I lived in LA, went to Fairfax High School.
Okay.
I went to the military. So I found my way out through the service.
Mm-hmm.
But I was in that era of the carjacking. I mean, you couldn't wear the Raider jackets and the starter jackets and the blue.
No Jordan stuff either.
All of the Air Jordan. So I was in that era of that experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm older, have my own daughters, and looking back, being out of the military now and just trying to figure out, like you, like what's missing in our youth these days as parents. And so my question to you is, when you're speaking to these young men and women, do they talk about the broken relationship with their parents? Like, do you hear that in their conversation at all?
You know, it's hard to talk to the young people. You do understand that first, see, because they don't respect the opinions of adults. That puberty thing, it just kind of takes our kids away from us, and they respect their peers' opinion about things more than they do ours. So I want you to be conscious of that so you don't lose sight with your own children that, you know, you're probably going to face that as well. And I was thinking about that peer pressure and forgot what you asked me.
Oh yeah, no.
So-
So like I'm gonna give an example, right? So I discovered I'm 51 tomorrow.
okay.
So I discovered about 10 years ago, in my 40s, that there was a broken relationship between me and my dad
Uh-huh.
since I was 5,
Okay.
and then there was another broken relationship with my mom when I was 8.
Mm.
So when I heard you say that's what triggered me to call, because when I heard you say that peer pressure and they don't listen to adults, I was like, I'm wondering, like, your experiences when you have a conversation with them, that not listening to adults for me came from, well, my dad don't love me and I can't trust my mama,
Yeah.
and I go to my peers, and then at some point there was a break in my friendship with my peers because we think we're going to get accepted by everybody, and we
Right.
don't.
Right.
And then it was like, then my whole world shrank into like, okay, so then who do I turn to?
Mm-hmm.
And then I turned to the military, but people turn to gangs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, athletes turn to sports, and we get our identity from these outside sources. So I was wondering, like, from what I learned about myself, is maybe that communication that doesn't go to the parents because there's a stronghold or a wedge that doesn't allow that child to communicate to the parent. And I want to know if you kind of hear that in your speaking with them.
I have. I'm sad to say, but I have. Really, unfortunately, I have. And we actually had a young girl on the show. See, this is why I believe in youth mentorship and having forums so we can hear from them. My problem is I sit around a lot of adults and we talk about the same thing over and over again. You know, but we have to reach out to where the problem is, and that's in with the young people. So if we don't listen to them, how are we going to know how to help them? So what I was saying that to say, we had a young girl on the show that actually admitted that in her home there was serious drug use, serious out of control drug use, and she was 14. And that drug use at home is what pushed her out in the street where the local gang became her family. They became her extended family because things were so bad at home. So I'm not trying to present that every home was a perfect scenario. I just want to give a kind of some allowance for that single mother that has all the pressure. All the pressure is on her, and that child will get into puberty, and a male child will get defiant because he's trying to step into his manhood and, you know, not be a mama's boy. You know what I mean? So he faces all those challenges from his peers.
Yes.
His mother never wants him to stop being her boy. You know what I mean? That mother that really loves and cares about him. But there are variations. There are variations in this. It hasn't been perfect. And the sad reality is when that drug showed up, that's what changed our homes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it changed everything. We became our own worst enemies because of that drug. And I tell people very candidly, we got addicted to drugs and the money.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah, and the money. And the shame is that they dropped that drug on our poverty. See, that's the thing that we're not looking at. They dropped that drug on our poverty. So we out here starving. All of a sudden we can pay our rent. We can buy groceries. Some of our young men thought, well, I'm going to buy my mama a house. And they did. And they did. But then the forfeiture law came in and took the mama's house. You see, so we've been kind of set up in a I'm trying to find the right word, just in ugly.
Well, it's like the guy you said, the young man that said he felt like he was tricked.
Said the young man said what? He was tricked.
The
Yeah.
one,
Oh,
guy,
yes.
Yeah, the one guy said, no, he felt like he was tricked
Yes.
because he thought that
Yes.
life was going to be the way out.
Yes.
It was not a way out.
Yes, I had that conversation with my oldest son because he got out of high school and he was cooking fries for Carl's Jr. Okay, and he had taken the bus to get to work, to get home, taking the bus, and his friends called him a punk. Say, man, you ain't got to do that. You're just being a punk for the man. You can come on over here and do this and have you a nice ride and gear and, they're really trying to woo him. And I had that honest conversation with him like you had with yourself. I'm either going to go with the street and let it kill me or I'm going to make an exit for myself.
Yeah.
See, that's a conversation we don't get very often.
Yeah.
Yeah, things ain't good at home, but I'm thinking about myself, like that 14-year-old girl.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't think about the military or college. She came out and found friends in the street that were going through the same thing that she was going through, and they became her protection. So, yeah, I really have enjoyed talking to you, and I wish I could.
I appreciate you. Thank you for and you caught me when you said Holy Spirit, so I was like, oh yeah, I gotta say hi to her because
Okay.
she's definitely on the path. And honoring our father and mother is a real promise in those commandments. And I believe that if we help our youth heal from those relationships,
Yes.
that whole life could open up. So I'm
Yes.
grateful for your program. Thank you so much, man.
Well, thank you so much for calling me, and God bless you. Keep blessing you because, you're one of our success stories. We don't get a lot of that, kids that think, well, I'm going to do this to save myself. So you blessed us with your phone call tonight.
Well, I have my own struggles outside of that too, but God has a plan for all of us. We're all born for a reason, and our testimony will be able to help that next generation. So I did have my struggles even in the military, but I've grown and I've developed and ready to get that knowledge back out to our youth so they don't have to go down those paths.
Yeah. In the military, I know you had a struggle, but we'll save that for another conversation, honey. We'll save that for another conversation. But God bless you, and thank you so much for calling.
Thank you for your show.
Look, you keep in touch with us.
I will.
All right, honey. All right. Bye-bye. Okay, family. Poetess gave me the sign. We out of time now? I got a minute to shut up, wrap up, say thank you and goodbye. And well, as I said, I thought I had retired, but 2021 told me not so fast, not so fast. You ain't done yet. And so we're back. So we are going to have another show in, let's say the first week of April. First week of April, we're going to be back because I found a young man that has a dynamic message for you, and I called him yesterday and locked him in. So we will be back the first Thursday in April, and I want you to listen in because he's a former, now reformed, and we love his testimony and his conversation. So I want you to be sure to listen in, and I'll post it on Facebook, but family, I'm out of time, and I'm sorry y'all made me sit here and talk for an hour by myself, but it shows you when God has something for you to do, he's going to come through, even if it's just running your mouth. So help me stop running my mouth and let us get something done. So God bless you, community family. Thank you for listening, and Gang Talk will be back the first Thursday in April at 6 o'clock. As usual. So take care of yourselves, love each other, stay safe, wear your mask, and wash your hands. Thank you, Poetess. We love you.
Somebody need to do a song for L.A. Straight up. Just go out to L.A. The new anthem. California Love Part 2. To live and die in L.A. West Side.